Welcome to the Calimesa Insider Podcast, the official podcast of the City of Calimesa. Join City Manager Will Colbo as he takes you behind the scenes of city projects, community stories, and the future of our hometown. Stay informed, stay connected. This is the Calimesa Insider Podcast.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Calimesa Insider Podcast. And today, I'm really excited to bring to you, or actually our Community Development Director is going to bring to you a map that will be soon available for the public to look at our development projects and our capital projects. When we do development updates on the podcast, it's one of our most popular episodes. So we haven't done one of those in a while, and we know that's the bulk of the questions we get about what's happening with this development or what's happening with this project. So today we're going to answer those questions. And to answer those questions, we are joined by our Community Development Director, Kelly Lucia, and our City Engineer, Mike Thornton. Both of you, welcome to the program.
Glad to be here.
All right. So we're going to start with Kelly, and she's going to show us around our new story map that she's developed. And it says draft on it right now, but it will be live very soon if it's not already live now. And so we're going to use that map to navigate around the city and take a look at the different projects that we want to give you updates on. So Kelly, why don't you tell us about the tool we have here?
So this is an ArcGIS Story Map. It's a cool tool, as Will said, that we can use to provide updates on kind of a rolling basis to the public. And so when this is made available, you'll be able to click the link at any point in time and see what's going on with various development projects and capital improvement projects in the city. So here we have, you just scroll down and there is a bar here where you can toggle, navigate through the website. Development projects, capital improvements are segregated out. There's some information on growth through the years, some groundbreaking photos, demographics, a link to our podcast, and some contact information. So here are our development projects, and this is not all-inclusive. It's not meant to be all-inclusive. So if you think, hey, I saw somebody building an ADU, or there's a residential addition happening and that's not on that list, it's not meant to show every single building permit or every single project in the city. It's meant to really cover the highlights. So first things first, we want to talk about some of the projects that we have. One that we get a lot of questions about is the Summerwind Commons Retail Center. So when you can use the map, click on the icon there, and it'll bring you to first things, some images. And so here are some elevations of what the retail center will look like. This is a nice grading shot that was provided by the developer showing the operations. You can see here in the background is Summerwind Trail School, and this is what we call Old Roberts Road. And these are some of the tenants that they have lined up. And I just would like to note, tenants, of course, are subject to change, but so far we know that they are looking to bring on Chevron, Chipotle, Wendy's, and Dutch Brothers, which we'll talk about in just a moment.
Yes. People definitely know Dutch Brothers is there.
Yes. So just some overall, each icon here shows the same kind of descriptors, but there's a project description, approval status, construction status, and general notes for each project. So when you're kind of navigating around the site, you can click anywhere and it's going to give you all this information. So for the Summerwind Commons, as an example, this is about a 75,000 square foot leasable space for retail, service, office, and medical uses.
Now, before you move on from that, let me ask you a question, Kelly, because this is one we get a lot of. Who actually decides the actual specific users for that?
The developers do.
Not the city, correct?
Not the city. So
we try
Yes.
to encourage. I know, what's the one that you want, Mike, here?
Olive garden. You get the man some breadsticks.
Yes. So, but yeah, that's something that we get a lot of, and I think that you probably get a lot of in your world as well.
Definitely. So for the city, what we do is we assign zoning designations to any particular piece of property in the city. And so you can look up any APN, any assessor's parcel number, and say what is allowed there. And when you say allowed, it's really what is the zoning designation. And so we designated this site for commercial land uses, and typically in zoning, they're very broad, very wide range of uses that are allowed. And so retail centers allow any number of retailer to go into them. And while we can ask for or request certain retailers, it would be the the leasing agent of any particular shopping center that determines who ends up leasing any particular pad. So when you say, man, I really want Trader Joe's, or I really want some other retailer, the city, we can ask just like the public can, but we don't get to make that final determination.
Right.
Okay. So this project was approved back in July of 2020. So it's been around for a while. Grading and construction are ongoing, as the public is aware. And here in the notes section, maybe we'll just provide a little update because folks are very interested. They want to get their coffee. They're interested in Dutch Brothers. And of course, we are excited to have that retailer come to our city as well. So the developer of the shopping center is working to complete final street improvements and Yucaipa Valley Water District improvements. So a on-site sewer lift station is required in order to provide sewer service to the center as a whole. And that's one of the components that's keeping Dutch Brothers from being able to open. So once the street improvements and that on-site lift station are completed, the building occupancies may be granted. So that's a process we're working as closely as we can with the on-site developer, the water district, and so forth to try to get coffee ready to be sold.
And we've been in contact with Dutch Brothers in their corporate offices. Obviously, with their building completed, at least the structure being completed, there's been a lot of interest in from their perspective to get this open as well. And so what we've done is we've really made sure to facilitate discussion between Dutch Brothers and the developer. And the developer has obviously, when you look at this and you realize, man, this was approved almost 6 years ago, right? And so you look at it and there still hasn't been anything opened yet. And so that just speaks to the challenges that this project has had over time. They've had problems with other utilities besides their lift station here. I think it took them over a year to get things going with Edison, which is a common thing that we find a lot of times, is that one of the biggest delays in development projects, and quite frankly, capital projects for the city as well, is delays with SCE. And so, the city can facilitate these things. We can try to push them along, but we cannot compel a developer to act once they have approval. We can enforce codes, like if there's nuisances on the properties, code enforcement, things like that. Those are actions we can take. If there's stormwater violations, which we've had on that property, or at least there's been potential violations that we've had the developer address, we have to keep on top of those as well. But in terms of actually making them build something, we really don't have much power to do that. Once they have approvals and once they've reached a certain point in their development, they can say, hey, we've done enough construction here. You really can't sunset our approvals. Is that correct? Is that accurate to say, Kelly?
Yes. I would also like to point, if you take a look at the approval date, this was right when we were in the thick of the pandemic. And so an understanding and conversations with the developer, the pandemic really hurt their timeline as well.
Right. So, Mike, can you maybe add anything to some of the public works or the engineering side of things in order to get this thing fully open? And obviously there's a second side of Roberts Road. There's a traffic light there. So there's a couple of infrastructure pieces that go along with this as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So as Kelly mentioned, we are working on finalizing street improvements for the project. We have provided a remedial work list to the developer that includes modifications to the traffic signal, as you mentioned. Once that work is done, then we would be prepared to release occupancy releases to the buildings. As you can see from Kelly's photos, the only building that's out there today is the Dutch Brothers building, but other potential buildings, as Kelly cited, could start construction once those remedial work list items are completed.
Right. Okay. So let's go to the next project we want to take a look at.
Sure. Let's see. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the Oak Valley Town Center. I think this is another one that we get quite a bit of questions about. Will, I know that you have done several podcast episodes regarding this project. So we'll do our best as things progress to provide updates on the project here for the public. You don't have to necessarily call into the city or email us. You can check out our story map here that we're previewing today, and we'll do our best again to provide updates. So just as a way of a quick project overview, so it's about 244-acre town center area to include approximately 2 million square feet of business park uses. That is between 4 industrial buildings and up to 750,000 square feet of retail or commercial uses with large and medium box retailers. The project was approved by the City Council through a development agreement in 2021, and an extension was granted in 25. And just to continue the timeline a bit, this project grading operations began in July of 2022. The master developer did file bankruptcy, and all of those construction and grading activities ceased in September of 2023. Again, we've got some links to other episodes that talk about what's going on, but Will, what is the latest and greatest on Oak Valley Town Center?
So as part of that, whenever a project like this gets approved, one of the things that the developer has to do is enter into a subdivision improvement agreement. So that's something that is required under the Subdivision Map Act, and it's also required by the city. And the reason that we do that is to guarantee the work that the developer is going to do in the public right-of-way. And so we're realigning Roberts Road, and we're extending Singleton as part of this project and expanding them. Ultimately, that would be the ultimate improvements. And so when the work stopped, the master developer was in multiple defaults of that subdivision improvement agreement. So we went to collect on bonds because those are backed by performance bonds, so a third party. So if something does happen to the master developer, there's still a way for the city to recover or at least to have the work continue. Well, lo and behold, the bond issuer Everest did not pay up on those. They said they didn't have to pay them. And so we entered into a lawsuit. I've described all this in previous podcast episodes. So where we are with that lawsuit now, as a matter of fact, this started almost 2 years ago to the day. The city had prevailed in an earlier action as part of this project. And so the Everest appealed it to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and they filed their opening brief. The city filed their brief earlier this week. And so our response to that, it's a very specific issue that the court is ruling on before it gets kicked back into district court to continue the case. Obviously, the city would not be pursuing this if we didn't think we have a very solid case, and we absolutely do believe that. And so that's kind of where we're at. So I think everyone's kind of in limbo because there's a lot of projects that rely on these improvements, not just the town center. There's adjacent projects that rely on it as well. So this is a very important project, not only for those developments, but also for the city and circulation and things like that, because Old Roberts Road had to be closed down as a result of some of those improvements that have happened. So that's where we're at on that now. And I think that the developers in the area, there's the retail piece is bank owned. So bank owns that now because they repossessed it as part of that bankruptcy. The industrial is kind of on hold, trying to figure out what's going to happen now. And there's various issues there. So there's been a lot of unfortunate turn of events in this project, both mostly on the private side between private owners, and the city's kind of stuck in the middle. And that's the unfortunate part of that.
Great. Thank you. Another project that comes to mind that we get a lot of questions about because of its status is the Sandalwood Travel Center. So Sandalwood Travel Center is a project that's going through the environmental process now. There was a little bit of confusion online regarding whether or not the project had been approved. And so We'll just provide some information here to let the public know this project has not gone to public hearing quite yet. What did occur was the environmental review process closed. There was what's called an initial study mitigated negative declaration, which is a long word for, or a long term just for, the environmental document for the project. It was out for public review until March the 12th. So that did recently close. And I think that's where some of the confusion came from. But what this project is proposed construction of a travel center and truck stop, which would include a convenience store with common area, diesel fuel canopy, regular fuel canopy, some electric vehicle charging stations, cat scales, overnight truck parking stalls, showers, and laundry facilities to accommodate those overnight guests of the truck stop. Approval status here, not approved. The project has not been scheduled for a public hearing of the Planning Commission at this time. And because it hasn't been approved, grading and construction activities have not begun. I will say that this story map will be helpful, because what I'll make sure that I do is that in any point in time that this approval status changes, I'll be sure that same day or next day after hearings occur, this will be the latest, greatest, most up-to-date information. So please use this story map as a resource for you if you're wondering, hey, what's happening with that project? Was that approved? Has construction started? You can always come to our story map and feel confident that this is accurate and up-to-date information.
And I think also in the notes section, we can put when the public hearing is scheduled.
Precisely.
Right. So we will also update that as well. So typically on a project like this, is it a 10-day or a 20-day notice period?
This one would be a 10-day.
It's a 10-day. Okay.
And we do a number of notification procedures. Maybe this is a good time to let the public know how that's changed a little bit in the last couple of years. So we still always notify through publication of what's called a public hearing notice in the Yucaipa Calimesa News Mirror. So if you get the print version, and I think the public notices are also available online.
They are.
You can always check those, that public notice section. Also, if you live within 600 feet of any particular project, you'll get one in the snail mail. And an interesting change that has happened to our public hearing notification guidelines in the last couple of years is that the city council said, we want to make sure we're very, very transparent, that folks know when there are development projects coming. And so the city council made a change to our municipal code that says that now anytime there is a public hearing that's going to occur, a large sign, 6x6 public hearing notice sign needs to be posted conspicuously on the property for that 10-day period. And so now you don't have to check a newspaper. You don't have to live within 600 feet of the project site. If you just drive by the site, you'll say, hey, there's a large sign, and have notification that way. So I think that was a really cool and important way that our city council committed to being transparent with our residents in our community.
And I hate to put you on the spot here, but I think we can, if you people want to sign up to get notifications on any projects that come through of a certain type, you can just email us and we'll add you to the list. So even if you don't live within 600 feet, if you're just interested in, hey, I wanted the notice as soon as this goes out, just contact us, let us know, and we'll put you on the list to make sure that you get that through email.
Absolutely. And later in the recording, I'm going to go through the contact us, and my email address will be provided there. So anybody that's listening, interested in signing up for updates, please email me, and I would be happy to put you on our public hearing notification list. Okay. You talked about that we'll have information regarding public hearings that are coming up. So I will just take a moment to highlight our next public hearing that's going to be occurring. Our Tractor Supply on Calimesa Boulevard did open back in 2016 as new construction. Sounds like they're doing so great, doing so well in our community that they are looking to do a little bit of an expansion. So this will be coming to the expansion will be heard by the Planning Commission on April the 13th of this year at the Norton Young Love Senior Center. And what they are asking is to do an interior remodel of their existing commercial building. And also they would like to construct about an 1,800 square foot accessory structure for storage within an existing fenced yard. So that's going to be kind of over in this area. They're hoping to have like a beefier, as I understand it, kind of outdoor sales area. So here's what they're proposing. Oops, excuse me there.
There's just one picture, I
It's
think,
just
on that
the one
one.
photo
Yeah.
on that one. And so again, you are always welcome to check out the notes section to see if there's a public hearing proposed in the near future.
All right.
So that's our development. There's lots more. Feel free to poke around on here, click on any icon, and you can find out information about all the private development projects that we have. And maybe I'll just take a moment to clarify the difference. So if you're under this development projects section here, these are projects, as you'll see here, I have kind of a little bit of a description. Project proposed by private entities. So anything in this section has been submitted to the city by a private development company. So you might say to yourself, why is the city proposing a gas station, a truck stop, another coffee house, or what have you? Anything under the development project section is not something being proposed by the city. This is being proposed by a private development company. If you're interested in what the city is pursuing, you would go to this button here, which is our capital improvement section. And these are projects undertaken by the city's public works and engineering department.
So that's a perfect handoff. So let's start with probably the biggest one on here, which gets a lot, and probably the most attention. And we've talked about multiple times. As a matter of fact, Mike's been a guest on the podcast a couple times now. We had our town hall back in December regarding the Cherry Valley Boulevard Interchange. So why don't you just give us the latest, greatest on that project, Mike?
So where we are, and maybe just a little bit of background before I jump into where we are, any work that is done along a freeway interchange requires approval from Caltrans. We started the application process with Caltrans, I'm going to say 2017, 2018. Here we are in 2026. It has been a long process. The steps of that process include study reports, project approvals and environmental documents, plan specifications and estimate preparation, right-of-way acquisition. As you can see from what's on the screen now, the footprint of the future interchange is much larger or encumbers much more land than the current footprint of the interchange. And after right-of-way acquisition is complete, then the project is approved for construction. The project at this stage is at what I would say 90% plans with Caltrans review, and we are now working on right-of-way acquisition along with funding. The interchange project will cost between $70 and $80 million is our current estimate. And we are pursuing both federal and state grants to fund the project. The federal grant, we did submit an application back in February. The application requested $25 million in a program called Build.
And that is the maximum amount that we can request from that program.
That is correct. We are working with our congressional representative, Congressman Ken Calvert, to help us see if we can secure those funds. We should be notified whether or not we are selected for funding in June or July later this year. We are also going to pursue what is called a TSEP application for state funding. TSEP stands for, Will, please help me.
The Trade Corridor Enhancement Program.
We will be asking for the remaining amounts that we need. If we're successful in getting the $25 million from Build to total the $80 million, we are going to prepare a TSEP application. In that application, there's a lot of data that we need to assemble, and we are beginning to work on that now. We are meeting with the agencies, California Transportation Commission and Caltrans representatives, to let them advise them of our project needs, so we can enhance our application and make it as competitive as possible.
Right.
That application will be due in August. We anticipate hearing whether or not our project is selected prior to the end of the calendar year 2026. If we are successful with both grant applications, the construction of the project will begin in 2027, late 2027, and it was anticipated to take between 2 and 2.5 years to complete.
So on that, I think one of the questions we get is, oh, well, you're relying on state money? Well, the state's broke. And so I will say that when we hear about deficits at the state, those are real things, but they're usually talking about the general fund. And so just like city governments, the state government also has a number of funds that they can only use for certain purposes. And so the TSEP program is funded through SB1. So if you recall, SB1 was a add-on gas tax that was passed, I believe, in 2016. And it funds this program. And City of Beaumont has actually received 2 TSEP grants in the last couple of years. So the funding is real, and it is a real resource for our city. So for those people that say, well, how are you going to rely on state, on a state that is broke, quote unquote broke? In this particular case, it is not. It is a funded program, and they have funded a number of projects under this program since its inception with SB1.
Just to add, with Beaumont's success, the city of Calimesa is using the same consultant to help us prepare the application. Again, they prepared a successful application for Beaumont, and we're along the same corridor, I-10. So their grant application was very competitive in a previous cycle. We believe our application will be also in the upcoming cycle.
Yes.
That said, just one more thing to add about this project. Calimesa Boulevard, as it exists today and as shown on the screen here, is in close proximity to the new interchange. One of Caltrans' requirements is to create separation between a new interchange and local roadways. The city has a separate project that we are working on that is fully funded from a regional funding program to realign Calimesa Boulevard as shown on the screen now. That project will start in late 2026 with or without the success of our grant applications. We intend to get that roadway moved far enough away to comply with Caltrans' separation requirements from the future interchange.
Yes. So why don't we move on to an adjacent interchange, because if we are successful here and have construction happening at Cherry Valley Boulevard, we are going to have more reliance on the Singleton Road interchange. So let's talk about that one.
So for those of you that live in our community, you're certainly aware that the Singleton interchange was only half built. The eastbound off-ramp and the westbound on-ramp were never constructed as part of the original freeway work. We as employees of the city have asked, well, what happened? Why weren't those built? Because they were planned to be built. Grading was done to build them. Nobody seems to have an answer as to why those 2 missing ramps were not built.
Well, I think maybe part of the reason is because maybe the people that built it are probably no longer with us. If they were working for Caltrans in the 1950s and 60s,
they are not here today.
They may not be here today.
So, but for us, we endeavor to build those missing ramps. The primary reason that we are connecting it to the Cherry Valley Interchange is we do want an alternate route for the community to use during the Cherry Valley Freeway construction. We would add those 2 missing ramps to provide full access, both exiting and entering the freeway at Singleton. As I mentioned earlier, part of Caltrans' process to do any improvements at an interchange is to provide separation from a local roadway. Existing Calimesa Boulevard is too close to the interchange to allow improvements, so we propose to realign Calimesa Boulevard so that it will provide the adequate separation to the new interchange. That said, the plans are 100% complete for the realignment of the roadway, and we are now in the project or property appraisal step of the project to acquire the lands needed to realign the roadway. The appraisals are just about completed, and when those are complete, we will make offers to the property owners. There are 4 different property owners that we need to acquire right-of-way from, and once those right-of-ways are secured, the project will be publicly bid, and thereafter construction would begin. For the missing ramps, we are doing a very similar process that we described for the Cherry Valley Interchange. It includes processing an application with Caltrans. We're working through technical studies, primarily traffic technical studies, in order to get Caltrans to allow us to move forward with design and then ultimately right-of-way acquisition and construction. Because we're going to place the 2 missing ramps in locations that are already state right-of-way, we do not anticipate right-of-way acquisition for the missing ramps. It is only for the roadway realignment of Calimesa Boulevard.
And as you can see from the map here, you can also see there are some improvements leading up to each side of the bridge. But I think in full disclosure, we do need to talk about the fact that the bridge will not be, itself will be replaced, but there will be improvements to the existing ramps as well as adding the new ramps and allowing for, greater turn movements where possible within the footprint of this project, correct?
That is correct. But we would endeavor to widen that bridge at a future time in order to eliminate the bottleneck that is shown on the screen.
Right, but I just want to make sure people understand that when this part of the project is done, it will not include that. So they say, well, wait a minute, what happened? We're telling you that now. We don't want to hide that fact from the public. I think the public needs to know that.
Correct.
Right. And just so you know, this other photograph is showing the interchange, but these are also the grading operations at the Oak Valley Town Center project, which we talked about a little bit earlier.
Right.
So perhaps, Kelly, we could move to Calimesa Creek, a project that we have been working on for quite some time and getting very, very close to construction.
Sure.
So the project that is on the screen now shows a detention basin to the far right. The purpose of the detention basin is to detain stormwater runoff for a short period of time. And in doing so, it reduces peak flows. There's an existing Calimesa Creek channel that then ends just west of 5th Street. What we intend to do is connect that open channel to an underground pipeline that will then extend over to near the freeway or Baker's fast food restaurant, where it will connect to an existing Caltrans system and then be conveyed under the freeway. That project is basically at 90% designed for our first phase. The first phase will construct improvements within the existing roadways. A second phase will then complete connections. Second phase will require regulatory permitting that we need a little bit more time to complete.
And this project, this phase 1 of this project is the reason that only half of County Line Road was paved from basically Calimesa Boulevard to Park Avenue or even to 5th Street. So, we've received calls on the fact that only one side of the road was paved. What happened to the other side, the Yucaipa side? And it's because that's where this pipeline is going to be. So we didn't want to lay brand new pipe to then have to just cut it all open again in the not too distant future, and then have to pave it again. So that whole part of that road will be paved as part of that project as well. So there's a picture of the retention basin. And can you maybe just briefly describe why the retention basin is part of this project?
So as peak flows come from the east, and that's the right-hand side of this exhibit, as peak flows work their way to the west, the basin system will intercept those flows, and it will slow them down, basically try to stop them. And then they will fill up like your bathtub fills up at home and attenuate those flows so less flow goes downstream. The reason we had to add this basin to our project was the Caltrans culvert facilities that we are connecting to did not have adequate capacity to convey the design storm peak flow rate under the freeway. So we needed to reduce it. And by creating a basin that allows us to reduce that peak flow rate so that we did not have to do improvements under the freeway.
So basically what you're saying, Mike, is the pipe here wasn't big enough, right?
That is correct.
And so
The cost to construct a bigger pipe under a Caltrans facility would be much more expensive than simply just building this detention basin.
So that's what the basin is for, to reduce the amount of water that ends up in the pipe, correct?
Correct. And I should say 2 other things. One, we are partnering with Riverside County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. They will operate and maintain the basin in perpetuity. And secondly, the project is almost 100% funded, not 100%, but almost 100% funded by Riverside County Flood Control, including property acquisition for the Basin property, as well as costs associated with easements that we need to acquire to complete the storm drain portion of the project.
And another a secondary benefit of this project with having the detention basin will also allow for additional groundwater recharge. So as water comes in, we'll be able to, that some of that water will percolate into the ground and replenish the aquifer.
That is correct.
And I think that we're even looking at partnering with San Gorgonio Pass Water Agency to allow them to possibly use this facility when it's dry. So in other words, when there's not storms happening and they can get water from the State Water Project, we could also use this basin for additional recharge as well.
That is correct.
Great. Well, as thrilling as drainage improvements are, I was thinking maybe we could talk about something that's exciting for staff, and kudos to our city manager for making this happen. Would you like to talk about City Hall?
I would. So currently at the City Hall we're in now, right now, actually, as we're recording this, we're sitting in the Senior Center. And so right next door to us is our existing City Hall. And we've been using that modular building that is about 2,000 square feet. We've been using it since pretty much our inception. I think initially we were actually operating out of this building until that building was ready. We added another modular building in the mid-2000s for planning and building. And we had Public Works working out of one time a sea container. We basically took a sea container and converted it into an office. So that's how we were trying to get by in terms of staffing. But as we grow as a city, it's can become clear that we do need additional space. Now, originally we had, we had grand visions of having a nice city hall at the Oak Valley Town Center, and there was land that was going to be dedicated for that purpose as part of the project down there. And obviously, we talked about earlier the status of that project and where it is at this moment, so we couldn't rely on that. So B of A, Bank of America, located at Avenue L and Calimesa Boulevard, 1055 Calimesa Boulevard to be exact, they closed this branch in 2021. And initially, it was just sitting there vacant. And then the library, we had the idea of, well, maybe we could put the library in there while the new library is being constructed. So B of A agreed to that. And so the county, which operates the library, relocated to this location while the new library is being built. And so the deputy city manager and I kind of discussed it, and we thought, maybe this is something that we can use because it's a very open space. There's, the building, the shell of the building is in very good shape. It's not that old. And the interior is so open that we can kind of shape it into what we want. There's not going to be a lot of demolition. So we kind of started thinking about it. Well, lo and behold, in summer of last year, we learned that B of A would be putting the building up for sale. So we got together with city council. We said, hey, here's what we're thinking. They supported the idea. And we put a bid in, and we were successful in that bid. So we acquired this building for just under $2 million. We used general government development impact fees to make the purchase, so it did not cost the general fund anything. And so now we as of March 10th, we are the official owner of this building. And so this coming Monday at our city council meeting on April 6th, we will be awarding a contract to do the design work for the interior of the building. We're also going to have them do exterior design of the building as well. Whether we can construct that or not within the budget that we have allocated for the project, we're not sure. It just depends on how much the interior renovations are going to cost, because that's the most important thing, to get a space that will allow us to not only operate efficiently as a city today, but that will allow us to grow in the future to add additional staff. We had members of the public ask, well, why don't you ask, we want more services. We want more, we want better services. We want more attention. We want, faster response times. Well, that takes people, right? Because we're in the people business. And money can be one constraint to that, but space is another. And right now, the space that we're just maxed out. So this will allow us to take our staff, put us in a more efficient space, all in one building, and it will allow us to expand in the future as well. Now, part of this is that the existing ATM will remain as a Bank of America ATM. So there is the drive-through ATMs that are there today. Those will continue to operate for at least the next 5 years. because we were required to enter into a lease back to BofA for that space. So they will continue to operate that as an ATM. So don't fear, if you bank with Bank of America and you use those ATMs, they will still be there for your use. And so we're really excited to have City Hall on our main boulevard. We believe that not only will that allow more visibility for the public, for us for them to come visit us, but also we think it'll be a nice little boon for our downtown district as well, to have that additional traffic be in a main location rather than somewhere off on a side street that may be difficult for people to find. So we're super excited about it. And we had an entire team that helped us put this deal together. So it definitely wasn't just me. But I'm glad we were able to make it happen. So we're really, really excited about this, and we're excited for what this will do for our future. So,
Right. So another exciting development, Mountainview Park. So the community is probably familiar with 4th Street, which is our existing park here, 4th Street Park. The city purchased this additional piece of property years ago, and our public works director has been working hard on design and construction of an expansion. And because this piece of property doesn't front 4th Street 2, we thought it was appropriate, and the city council made some decisions on renaming. So we are now looking at the Mountain View Park expansion. And Will, did you want to go through some of the design considerations here?
yeah, so this project was vetted through our Parks, Trails, and Community Services Commission, and they were a big part of kind of shaping what this park would look like. And actually, 2 of our council members are former members of that commission, Mayor Jeff Cervantes and Mayor Pro Tem John Manley. And Mayor Pro Tem John Manley, in particular, was instrumental in ultimately championing this project and bringing it forward. And the thing that he was key in was bringing the pickleball courts. Obviously, pickleball has become a very popular sport, so we're going to have 4 pickleball courts added to our city. And actually, we're going to have a soft opening of the park. And the reason I call it a soft opening is because the pickleball courts will be opened on Saturday, April 11th at 9 o'clock. We're going to be doing a clinic. So if you haven't done so already and you want to, on our website, you'll find a link to register for that clinic and enjoy the pickleball courts. But after that, they'll be open to the public. There are rules, so please make sure you follow those rules. Now, we're looking at the field here. This will not be open initially as part of that soft opening. Unfortunately, there were some weed control problems that cropped up with the contractor, and so they had to correct that. They had to do some weed killing and reseeding of the sod. And so, in order to make sure that the sod is properly established before we open it to the public, we have to keep that part of the park closed. So it won't connect to the existing part of the park initially, but we expect to have the park fully open in June, and we're going to do then a full grand opening at that point for the community to come and enjoy that.
And Will, when you say that we're having a clinic, explain that.
So what that means is that we're going to have, I believe it's the Yucaipa Pickleball Club, or one of the clubs that exist in Yucaipa, and they're basically going to have people that are experienced playing pickleball, have people come in and show them how the game works. What is the kitchen? How is the scoring? Because I will tell you, I've played pickleball a couple of times, and the scoring is a little bit confusing. So I did actually a podcast episode on this, so I'll give that to you to link to that. But this is the clinic is basically just to introduce the game to our community.
Got
so
it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I think that kind of covers the highlights of the development projects and capital improvement section of the story map. And I'll just briefly show you if you want to see some growth through the years. We thought this was interesting to provide to the public. And this is courtesy of historicaerials.com. If you're interested in the images that I'm going to show you, check out their website. They have some interesting and cool historical images here. So what you see, there's a slider bar in the middle. This is the JP Ranch and Singleton Heights area of our city. And on the left, this is 1966. So you see not a lot of development. You can, of course, see the canyons and the ridge lines, but mostly undeveloped, maybe a little farm over here. If you move your slider bar, you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, in 2020, this area really transformed. And this is the Singleton Heights development. Here's JP Ranch. And again, just meant to kind of show you, if you're poking around the story map and interested in development and growth in our city, you can toggle through the years. Summerwind Trails, I know we have a lot of new residents here that are living over in that development. And so here, 1959, again, very low amount of development. We have some farms here, some irrigation areas and basins. This is Old Roberts Road, but kind of not a lot else happening in this area in 1959. And if you...
That was pre-interchange even.
Yeah.
Before the interchange was even built there.
Yeah,
it looks
that's
like.
true.
Yeah.
That is true. So in here, 2022, all of our new friends in the Summerwind Trails development, all of our new residents and students that go to Summerwind Trails School. And of course, you can see before our Lonely Dutch Brothers was constructed, some of the grading operations happening in 2022 there. So I thought that's kind of cool, kind of interesting to see the changes through the years. And we were talking about City Hall. My goodness, existing City Hall in 1938. We sat, we weren't here at all. But you can see Calimesa Creek, which Mike and Will talked about a bit earlier, and the drainage improvements that are set to occur in this area. And that's the existing drainage canal there. And here's our City Hall. So this is the Senior Center. City Hall and the fire station are here. And again, 1938 to 2022. Very cool, very interesting to see all the changes over the years that have occurred in our city. And here's another, finally, 1959 to 2014. So check it out. And again, if you're interested in this kind of imagery and comparative information, you could go to Historic Aerials. They have images available for purchase there. We have a section on groundbreakings. So this is fun to look back over the years as various public and private facilities have opened. We see lots of familiar faces here. Our deputy city manager, our now retired city manager. We have council members and supervisor office, but kind of check out and see some of the fun ceremonies that we've done to open our parks, our library, groundbreaking for some of our projects. Finally, over here, we've got some demographics. So again, just in the vein of providing the public with some general information, we pulled information from the census, and Calimesa, small but mighty. We are up to 10,000 population. We've got about 4,200 total housing units in the city of Calimesa. This statistic I thought was interesting. We're at almost 90% homeownership rate for our occupancy type in the city. We have a very decent educational attainment with about 30% of our residents holding bachelor's degree or higher. Our average household size, is about 3.38 per household, people per household. Our median income is just hovering right under 90,000, and our age I thought was very interesting and maybe not expected, but our median age is 40.
Did you expect it to be higher?
I did expect it to be higher.
I believe if you looked at the 2010 census versus today, it's significantly lower. Because if you take a look at JP Ranch, Singleton Heights, and Summerwind, that's where our growth has been, a bulk of our growth, and so that's where a majority of our families live. So, Calimesa has been known as a senior community, and so that is a sign that has been shifting over time. And so that, when I saw that, I was a little surprised it was as low as it was. I thought it would still be a little bit higher. I felt it would drop, but maybe not by that much.
Agreed. We've got some population by race information. I always think it's interesting when we're talking about demographics to see the racial makeup of our city. And we'll see as additional census data comes out over time, how this changes as our community continues to develop and grow. I think we'll have some shifts in our racial population data as well. Right? A little plug for our podcast. We're excited that you're here. Happy that you're listening. Hope that you continue to tune in. So if you like this episode and want to see more, our story map will provide a link. finally, if you have questions, earlier in the session, we talked about sending information over to me if you would like to be on a list for public hearing notices, or if you have any questions regarding any of the information we've talked about here today. I'm Kelly Lucia. I'm the Community Development Director. My email address is here. City Engineer Mike Thornton as well is available, and here's his contact information, and our Public Works Director, Madi Shakir. Also, if you want additional information, we have linked here our Planning Department website and our Public Works and Engineering website have additional information available.
Well, thank you, Kelly, for walking us through this tool. I think that it's going to be certainly something that's going to be very helpful to our residents and our council as well, because I know that they ask for development project updates as well. And so having this tool available for their use to see what's happening with things is going to be super helpful. And hopefully, it does continue our goal to engage our community and be more transparent with our community. Transparency in government is a strange thing. I think governments do want to be more transparent. The public certainly demands that. Unfortunately, sometimes we get in a mode where we put things out there without people really understanding what they are. So I think tools like this really help with that, because it does cut through that governmentese, so to speak, in terms of government speak and how we communicate and the legal language that we have to use. And I think this really, having a visual and everyday language will really try to bridge that gap. And I think that's what true transparency is. It's not just disclosing the information; it's disclosing information in ways that the public can digest and understand. So this definitely does that. So I do really appreciate all your work on that. Also, thank you to Travis for pulling together the information for the capital improvement projects side of it as well. So with that, we're going to wrap up our podcast. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok for shorts and links to the podcast. And of course, make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you haven't done so already, so you never miss an episode. And if you want to listen to audio, you can look at the podcast on any of the podcast platforms out there. You just choose your favorite one: Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on all of them. So until next time, we thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.